All right, so I'll do a very, very short training section, and it's going to be very short, something that you people most probably already know, but this is something that people have been asking Michael in his meetings and myself in my meetings with clients a lot these days. So that is something that we are going to be discussing right here in this training section. So most of the stuff that we talk about right here, most of the content that we talk about, it basically comes from you people, whatever the people ask, how do we do this? How do we do that? So that is where these training sections or the webinars that we do, workshops that we do, they all come in from there. All right. So something that I for the most part, have been asked a lot about recently, including Michael, has been the idea of airflow linking. And I know we have already spoken about it in various of these meetings, but let's go a bit deep into it. And when I say deep into it, I don't mean very, very deep, but let's just talk about it a bit more. So if I were to ask you, if someone could answer for me, what do we mean by airflow linking and what is the advantage of doing that? By a show of your hands. Joe.
So airflow linking, the way I understand it, it's when you take two words that, let's say, you anticipated you were going to get stuck on a certain word. Let's say the word is car, for example, and the phrase you are trying to say is the black car. Instead of saying the black car, you could take in a deep breath and you link those two words. For example, instead of saying that's the black car, you would say that's the black car. So you smoothly you mix that K at the end of black and the C at the beginning of car, and that phrase will flow much smoother. Or that sentence like, "Hey, I was in a black car." That's an example.
That was a really, really great explanation. So, just like Joe mentioned, simply what we mean by airflow linking is first of all to flow with our speech. Many of the people who struggle with their speech, what you would mostly find in their speech is that they are so used to topping off their speech when they are speaking. And the reason for that is that they are so used to anticipating almost every single word that they have to speak. So they are very much focused on, I have to say this word, I have to say that word. What if I get stuck right here? What if I get stuck right there? They're scanning every single word, and that makes them speak in a choppy manner. And speaking this way would in itself make you anticipate more, and it would make you worry more, and it would make you get stuck. The more gaps you have between your words, and by choppy speech, I mean word by word, or I mean speaking in shorter phrases. Someone's mic is not on.
That's good.
All right, good. So by choppy speech, it can mean speaking word by word as well. And by choppy speech, it can also mean speaking in shorter phrases when you are speaking and speaking like this. So when you speak word by word or when you speak in short phrases, you are giving yourself a chance to anticipate the words and not let your speech flow naturally. When we read something, there's a word, there's a gap, there's a word, there's a gap, there's a word. But when we speak, we don't speak like that. Or even when we read, we don't read like that. Although we can see those gaps in between the words, but when we are reading, we just glue and connect all the words together. And that is what we mean by airflow linking or what we call blending of words. Blending of words simply means to glue the words together as you're speaking. So instead of saying to glue the words together when you're speaking, you're saying to glue the words together when you're speaking. Now, the more you flow with your speech, the more you try to link and connect your words, you don't give yourself a chance to anticipate every word because you are not saying single words, you're not saying specific words. You're just trying to flow with your speech. And like it's called airflow linking, breathing is very, very important for that. If you don't breathe more deeply, and if you don't breathe more frequently, it would be very hard to blend your words. It would be very hard to flow with your speech. It would be very hard to say more in a single breath. So, in order to say more in a single breath and flow more with your speech, it's important to have that air in your system. So it's breathing and then flowing with your speech, breathing and then flowing with your speech. Without breathing, extending becomes very hard, blending becomes very hard, and it becomes almost impossible to speak. Like I would hold my breath like this and speak. So it would be very hard to extend and blend or do whatever you want. So breathing is very, very important. Visualize it like you're inhaling from your nose and you're exhaling from your mouth. And while you're exhaling, your words are riding the air. You're speaking on the exhalation. And while you're speaking on the exhalation, your words are riding the airflow, and every single word is linked together. Not every single word, but the words are linked together while you're speaking. And when I say blending of words or speaking in a flow or saying more in a single breath, I don't mean that keep going on and on and on and on and on and on. I mean going for long enough to help yourself flow. And wherever you feel like, hey, I need to breathe again, you just pause, breathe, and then again do the same thing. Then wherever you feel like I need to breathe again, you pause, breathe, and then you again do the same. It might be very, not very, it might be a bit hard for you at the start if you're not used to it, if you're used to anticipating every word, but the more you practice it when you're by yourself and the more you use it with people, you would see that the more you start to flow with your speech, the more you link and connect your words, the lesser and lesser that anticipation would get. Because your focus would be out from the words and more towards the fact that you need to be flowing with your speech. At the start, it might be a bit hard because your mind would want you to, hey, stop and anticipate. Stop and anticipate. We want to anticipate. But it's almost like you force yourself to keep going. Your mind is trying to stop you to anticipate, but it's like forcing yourself to keep going even when your mind wants you to stop. So remember, you only pause where you need to give yourself a gap and where you need to breathe. Now, one thing that we get asked a lot is blending of words, does it mean speaking fast? So, no, blending of words does not mean speaking fast. So, for example, if I'm linking my words together, I can speak like this. I'm linking my words together right here and I'm speaking fast. Yes. So, this was an example of just blending and not slowing down or not extending. And if I'm just extending and not blending, it would sound like this if I'm just extending and not blending. So if I just extend, yes, it helps me to slow down, but it makes my speech very, very choppy. And if I just blend, yes, it would make me flow, but it makes my speech fast. So speech needs to be a combination of extending and blend. Right now, what I'm doing while I'm speaking is that I'm extending my words and I'm also linking and connecting together my words. So I can still link my words while I'm extending my words. See, right here, I'm extending out my words, but I'm still connecting my words. So this is something which is incredibly important. Extending helps you to slow down, blending helps you to flow, and when you put forward a combination, your speech gets really, really smooth. So the more you breathe, the easier it is to extend and blend, and the more you breathe, extend, and blend, the easier your speech gets. So it's like pause, breathe, extend and blend. Pause, breathe, extend and blend. And it comes with a lot of practice. For the sake of practice, I want you guys to go inside the course and find something that we call the free flow speaking exercise, the four phases speaking. Now, that is the best way to practice breathing, to practice extending, to practice blending, and to practice their combination in each of the four phases. I'm not going to explain those right here. I want you guys to go inside the course after this meeting, of course, and to have a look at that. Now, the more you do that, like I said, the more you breathe, extend, and blend, the more it would actually trigger your new speaking style. And the lesser that anticipation would get because you're not really allowing yourself to anticipate. But let's say you are breathing, extending, and blending, and you anticipate. If you anticipate, I want you to extend and blend even more. So keep breathing, extending, and blending. But if you anticipate, do that even more. So, for example, I'm speaking and I anticipate the word anticipate, let's say. So, for example, I'm speaking and I anticipate. So I said, and I anticipate, I blended it with and then I emphasized or extended on the word anticipate. And I anticipated, and I anticipated, and then you just keep moving forward with your speech. So don't stop just before that word. Try to force yourself to keep going and not say those words by themselves, which you're anticipating and which you're feeling like I might get stuck on. Even if you stop just before that word, go back and link again and or emphasize on that word. Or what I find out to be the most helpful, add a few words and blend it with that word that you have to say. And then you just keep flowing with your speech. It's really, really important. And the more you know, the more options that you have, the lesser you worry about anticipation because you know that, hey, even if I anticipate a word, I don't have to worry about it because I can blend, I can extend on that, and then I can just keep moving forward with my speech. So when you stop worrying about the anticipation part, anticipation takes care of itself. I hope I don't anticipate is the same like I hope I don't get stuck. When you say, I hope I don't anticipate, that anticipation would start to come. But if you're like, even if I anticipate, that's fine because I know what to. I can just blend that word with the previous words. I can emphasize on it and move forward with my speech. Right? The more you do that, the less you worry about anticipation and the lesser and lesser it gets. So I want you guys to work a lot on the free flow speaking exercise if you are used to anticipating words and getting stuck and speaking in a choppy manner and all of that. So remember, breathing, extending, and blending, all of these things go hand in hand. Even in a situation, although that won't happen, if you feel like even if I extend, even if I blend, I would still get stuck, although 99% of the times it won't happen. Even if you feel like that, just switch the way you say it, right? But in no circumstance force out a word because if you force out a word, you are just re-emphasizing the getting stuck memory in your brain.